What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of For the Love of Wrestling. I, of course, am your host, the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. Happy Thursday. It's time for me to begin to wrap up my week, at least here on For the Love of Wrestling. Got so much in store coming up this weekend. It's good to see people showing up in the chat room. Michael Vasquez. Jeff is in the house. It's Thursday, and you know what that means. Yes, indeed, good sir. While I'm thinking about it, while I know that you're here, if you can get me the graphics for Tribute to the Troops and the double feature so I can show them in the plugs, that would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, yesterday's episode of Dynamite was a pretty damn good show. It was everything that it needed to be. It delivered. Honestly, when they started announcing the matches for next week for what's going to be Winter is Coming, I feel like next week's show seems kind of lackluster. I wish this had been Winter is Coming. But digress. I'm not booking this. I just recap it. So last night's Dynamite got us started with Jon Moxley versus Roosh in a Continental Classic match. This was a really hard-hitting opening contest. Both men tested the other's limits. Of course, Mox got the win via submission. You know, after Dynamite got over last night, because we actually get it at the East Coast time here on the West Coast, I tuned into Aaron Rift's recap on No DQ. And he pointed something out, and I have to agree with him. He pointed out the fact that there's a few people in this tournament that look like they were strategically placed there just to eat pinfalls. And that sucks. There's some that are more obvious than others, like Daniel Garcia, like Mark Briscoe, like Jay Lethal. Roosh isn't as obvious of a person because it really looked like they were going to start to push LFI, but he might have 3 points at this point. Just kind of sad at the end of the day because I really like Roosh. Not that I'm anti Moxley or anything, but I feel like Roosh and Lethal and those guys at least deserve to get a few points on the board, even if it's just because matches go to draws and they don't eat a complete L and at least can get like 1 or 2 points on the board. Just saying. That's my thoughts on it. What do you guys think about some of these guys? Are they just there to eat L's? And if so, does it cheapen the tournament some? When you know that half of the field is there just to lose. We then, speaking of Jay Lethal, we had a Jay Lethal versus Jay White video package kind of detailing their rivalry through the years, going back to Reign of Honor. I didn't know that they had this storied of a history. You know, they show like baby Jay White in Reign of Honor. No facial hair, short hair. And through this video, we learned that they are 1-1 when they've met each other in the past. And if Lethal loses his match tonight, he's not eliminated from the tournament, but there's no way he can win with Moxley having 9 points already and there only being 2 more matches after tonight. You know, so the best Lethal could get is 6, and that's not going to be enough to catch Mox. So this match against Jay White really is a must win for Jay Lethal. We then had Renee Paquette with Roderick Strong in the Kingdom. Roddy is continuing to spew his hyperbole about how MJF is going to stab Samoa Joe in the back, and he's no longer going to be allowed to be held back. He gets out of his wheelchair. It is a miracle, by God. And Roderick Strong and the Kingdom push the wheelchair off the entrance ramp in a bout of defiance. I don't know. This was corny to me. We already knew Roddy could walk. We already knew Roddy could still wrestle because he's had matches since the neck brace. So it just seemed corny to me. We then get Renee backstage, and she's outside of MJF's dressing room, and she's about to try and knock, but Hangman Adam Page comes up. Forgive me, y'all. Renee asks the Hangman where he's been, and Hangman says that after the match against Swerve Strickland and the shots to the head, he couldn't fly for a couple of weeks, concussion protocol and whatnot. MJF then comes into the frame, and MJF and Hangman start to trade shots back and forth, about how MJF beat Hangman to claim the Dynamite Diamond Ring the first time, how MJF is the longest reigning champion, how Adam Page had like a lackluster reign and everything. Just MJF is lighting him up, and Hangman gets a few good shots back on him. Forgive me for not remembering him. You know how I feel about Page. I did take notes, but I didn't get everything that they said. But MJF accuses the Hangman of being the devil. And Joe comes in and has to play the peacemaker role here as Page and MJF start getting riled up. We then had Mark Briscoe versus Swerve Strickland. And this was another just hard-hitting banger of a match. Like, dude, they went all out with this one. Swerve is really starting to show everybody why he deserves to be champion, why he needs to be champion. Like, the fact that Swerve hasn't got the belt yet is just ridiculous when you think about it. We then had Renee backstage with Mariah May. And Mariah May talks about her meeting with Tony Khan last week and her impending debut. And a little bit about Tony Storm's match going to be coming up this evening. We then had Joe come out to the ring, this time for the tag match. It's supposed to be the tag team title match between Joe and MJF taking on the members of the Devil's Henchmen. And Joe gets in the ring, and all of a sudden the music starts to glitch up and the lights go dark and the henchmen surround the ring, And then the lights go dark again, and they're all gone. I felt like this was a really well played segment. Um, Still kind of curious where things are going. Still not much progression when it comes to the terms of the storyline here and moving forward with who is the devil and why the devil is coming. But alas, it's kind of like filler. I think it's because MJF's injury and they're just trying to stall, but not 100% positive. We then had Mox and Swerve backstage, and they tell each other that each man will do whatever it takes in order to win the tournament. And this was just another good build and promo. AEW, I've said it before, and I will continue to give the devil, pun intended, its due. AEW is really stepping its game up when it comes to their backstage segments, furthering storylines, and their video packages. Big G in the house. What's going on, Big G? We then had Ben Mankiewicz introducing Timeless Tony Storm. And for those of you that don't know who Ben is the host of the films on Turner Classic Movies. Turner Classic Movies, obviously part of the Turner Company, TNT, TBS, all that stuff, Warner Discovery. So this was perfect to tap, to utilize for this. And Turner Classic Movies shows those movies from classic Hollywood, if you will, you know. I haven't watched lately to see if they've updated it like the oldie stations have updated their stuff, but Turner Classic Movies used to show stuff from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, and even into the 60s. Not much into the 70s, but really that 30s, 40s, 50s era of Hollywood. So for Ben Mankiewicz to be there and introduce timeless Tony Storm and compare her to classic Hollywood like Gable and Garbo and Monroe and Mansfield, this just was really something that was needed to further Timeless Tony, in my opinion. It would have been better, I think, if they had had this introduction, I don't know, at the Forum in Hollywood instead of Montreal. No disrespect to Canada, but Hollywood, Canada. So, that was my only issue with that was timing of the segment. We then had the AEW women's title match as timeless Tony Storm defended against Sky Blue. And honestly, I felt like this was a phenomenal match between these two women. This, you could say this was the first hour main event because they didn't give the women the typical 9:25 time slot. Thank you so much for that, Tony, because we had two more matches that really needed time. So this was more like the hour one main event. Sky Blue gets better and better with every match, showing that she will be champion one day. Tony ends up getting the victory, but not before some great false finishes, man. Sky Blue hit the code blue, only got a 2 count. Tony went for the Storm Zero, but Sky Blue was able to counter it. Just some great maneuvering here by all parties. There was even a spot where Tony was on Luther's shoulders and Luther ran as Tony held on to Sky Blue and then kind of just flung her off the ring apron. Just great stuff. After the match, after Tony's victory, Riho came out. And the last time we saw Riho, Tony was an outcast. And the outcasts took Riho out. So now that Tony is champion, even though she's no longer an outcast, Riho wants that revenge. So definitely going to be curious to see where things go from here. Jeff says, I'll disrespect the hell out of Montreal, especially the arena. Stupid lingering 1993 pain. And the ladies really kicked ass here. I was impressed. We got a super chat from Big G. Thank you so much, Big G. Says, I need my doctor back on TV. Damn it. Nothing against the women there, but what the fuck, Tony Khan? I've heard rumor, G, that everything is fine with her as far as like physically. It's not like she's injured or anything. But I think I read somewhere that as a practicing doctor, she has to put in X amount of hours at her facility to keep her license and everything. So she may have been taking this time to try to get those hours in so she can keep being a licensed doctor. That's just one of the things that I read. Take it for what it's worth, but I feel like we may see her again come World's End leading into 2024. Jeff says DMD back on G's TV. That's right. Now we all know who GTV was. Damn it, it's Big Baller G. We then had a good video package for Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage. And I'm sorry, but for the rest of the show, I'm just going to call him Edge and Christian. Because when you're talking about the history between these two, it's hard to talk about the history between Adam Copeland and Christian Cage. It's a lot easier to talk about the history between Edge and Christian. It just is what it is. Forgive me, y'all. But the video package again, man, going back to their childhood and seeing them together as kids and on the indie scene as a tag team with belts, because they can't show WWE photos of them as tag champions, so they had to find some indie promotion stuff. And the storytelling in this video, for those that didn't already know about Edge and Christian and their history, just a chef's kiss when it comes to this video package, for real, for real. We then had our last Continental Classic match for the evening, Jay Lethal versus Switchblade Jay White. And if I'm being honest here, I felt like this was the weakest match of the night. And that's not to say that it was a bad match. I'm not trying to insult anybody, let alone Lethal or Jay White. But in comparison and contrast to the two other really hard-hitting Continental Classic matches we had, in comparison to the main event that I haven't even got to yet, and in comparison to that women's match, I just felt like this was the weakest. And when you've got a show that's that strong, that this match seems weak, that just shows that AEW is really doing some good stuff in the booking of their matches and giving us quality matches. They just need to continue to raise their game as far as why we care about these matches in the first place. Again, for those of you that don't usually tune into my show, 30th episode. So you figure I've done 5 or 6 5 something, 5, 6, somewhere in there, episodes about AEW programming already. Ever since the Tuesday Night War, they've gotten better in their videos and their hype and their promotion of these matches and giving us a reason to care. They just need to keep this upward trajectory. But again, Jay Lethal versus Jay White was a decent match. We got the Switchblade Jay White getting the points here. Again, Jay Lethal seems to just be in this tournament to eat falls, which sucks because Jay Lethal is such a great wrestler, such a great character. I know he's been associated with Jeff Jarrett for a long time now, and perhaps that has weakened his star ability just a little bit because he's not being a man and fighting his own battles. He always needs Planet Jarrett by his side, whether it's Jeff Jarrett, Sanjay Dutt, Satnam Singh, Karen Jarrett, or whoever. And maybe what we're going to get out of this storyline wise for Jay Lethal is that he was doing better on his own. You know, maybe he needs to go off and find himself so that he can get back to his winning ways without being part of the stable. Maybe, just maybe, Noah will get his wish regarding Lethal and Team Jarrett. You talking about Lethal turning? It's always possible. Always possible. Main event, of course, was Adam Copeland versus Christian Cage, and the crowd was into this from the jump, man. First of all, and we've known about this for a minute, but having the Metalingus play with Beth's introduction of You Think You Know Him, I feel like just made this match even more personal because you've got that touch. Again, we've already known Beth did that when he made his return at Wrestle Dream. It's well documented. But when you consider how personal this feud is, just that little extra touch makes it even more personal and more dramatic, if you will. Then, of course, Christian with his music, the same music that he's used, although a little revamped going back to his TNA days. The Evanescence knockoff music, but I digress. This match just was a clinic. It was a barn burner. It was a fantastic main event that ended more or less exactly the way I expected it to. Did we get a clean finish? No, we did not. Why didn't we get a clean finish? Because this match deserves to be on a pay-per-view. And I would not be surprised to see the rematch made for World's End. Whether it's a cage match, whether it's a ladder match, whether it's an Iron Man or Last Man Standing or whatever, there's going to be a rematch, more than likely at World's End, more than likely with a stipulation. Do we need to see 50-year-old Edge and Christian taking ladder bumps? Fuck no. But did they help put ladder matches on the map? Yes, they did. So I would not be surprised to see a stipulation like that. Jeff says, Dim Canadian wrestling love their own, but holy hell, did this match ramp them up? Hell yes, they did. And he goes on to say, am I the only one hopeful the in-ring belt to the head was the only blow laid down in any sort of Montreal screw job last night? God damn it. Jeffifa, what are we going to do with you? But yes, Nick Wayne's mom came out and screwed Edge over. And a lot of people were kind of confused about this. Like, why would she align herself with Christian after everything that he's done to her and Nick Wayne and taking her son away from him? How quickly people forget that she stood right there as Adam gave the concerto, not once, but twice to her son. So that is why she did it. It payback revenge. And that pretty much concludes Dynamite from last night. It was again a stellar show. I want to say that Aaron Rift gave it a solid B. I think I would go up. I'm going to give it an A. Not an A plus, and only because of the screw job finish. But I'm going to give it a solid A. I thought it was a damn good show. What did you guys think of last night's Dynamite? Let me know in the comment box. And as soon as I get back from showing you all of the upcoming specials that'll be coming to Open Mic Night, beginning with the eve of Christmas Eve this month and going through Halloween of next year, we will be right back. So much fun stuff is going to be coming to Open Mic Night between the game show nights, karaoke nights, and on the heels of last week's interview, which if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch the almost 3-hour interview that was conducted on Open Mic Night with independent wrestler, journeyman, and friend Gino Told You So, Gino Rivera. This was some great stuff. We may be trying to get more of those. Try to line up an interview every quarter for Open Mic Night. So you're going to have to stay tuned for all of that. Make sure you guys tune in later on today for our Simply Predicting of NXT Deadline. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. Myself, the Simple Man Noah Foster, and a bunch of other wrestling fans will be there to discuss the final NXT PLE for the year. Then on Friday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern, will be our watch along coverage of Tribute to the Troops. I kind of agree with Jeff when he mentioned this on the Greg Cherry show yesterday. If we had known this was just going to be a standard SmackDown instead of its standalone special, then we probably wouldn't have even been doing it. We have nothing against the troops. We love doing tribute to the troops and giving the soldiers and our armed forces the love and respect they deserve. But tribute to the troops is generally it's a standalone special. It's different from a weekly Raw or SmackDown. And had we known it was going to be lumped into a SmackDown, then we may not have announced we were going to cover it, if we're being 100% honest. Saturday, double feature watch along, Lord Help Noah, Final Resolution, the last Impact Wrestling pay-per-view, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Eastern, and then Deadlines watch along, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 o'clock Eastern. This has been flip-flopped due to familial obligations that timing of we're unaware when the original plans were made, because we were going to do Deadline first and Final Resolution second, but priorities over passions. And with Deadline not even going to end until 11 or 12 o'clock Pacific time, 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, there will be no open mic night on Saturday. Instead, it'll be a special Sunday brunch, noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. Not really sure everything we're going to discuss yet on this special Sunday brunch. Working out a couple of things, trying to have a little bit more light-hearted conversation as opposed to serious conversation because of it being a brunch. You know, whenever we do the open mic night brunches, I try to have the fare be a little bit lighter because you don't want such heavy, hard-hitting news and then you've got to go through the rest of your day. You know what I mean? So, if there is nothing else, Jeff says Christian Cage needs to win Father of the Year in the No DQ Year-End Awards. Make it happen, Rift. That's right. No DQ needs to name the award in honor of Aaron's father. Call it the Zoogs Rift Father of the Year Award for the No DQ Year-End Awards. Make it a tribute to his father. I think that would be so good. We're going to discuss the founder getting some caffeine first and foremost. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So if there's nothing else, make sure you guys tune in on Monday when I will be doing my recap of all the weekend shows, Rampage, SmackDown, and Collision. Same bad time, same bad channel. Until then, thank you all for joining me and tuning in. I am the Renegade of J.J. Williams, and I will see you guys next time.
The Jeff Meacham Network's Multiverse of Media. For over 15 years, the recognized symbol of excellence and the standard bearer in coverage of sports and entertainment.
Thank you, JJ. Appreciate you.